The Galactic Tribunal chamber glowed with sterile light, cold and impersonal despite the thousands of delegates gathered within. Towering screens displayed the insignia of the Velcora Empire, a jagged silver crescent over a field of obsidian. Rows of armored Velcoran officials stood at attention, their gleaming uniforms pressed without wrinkle, expressions fixed in stony disapproval. At the center, seated in a chair raised slightly above the rest, Grand Admiral Catal presided with thin-lipped disdain and the subtle twitch of someone who expected agreement, not opposition. A human stood alone on the polished floor. Tall, lean, unarmed, he wore no military insignia. His uniform, though neat, was intentionally nondescript. No country, no rank, no hint of origin. He was human, yes, but to the gathered audience, he might as well have been a stranger from a myth, a creature from a forgotten backwater. His face was unreadable, his eyes sharp but not boastful. He didn't bow. He didn't speak until spoken to. "State your designation," the Grand Admiral ordered. The human's voice was calm, without arrogance. "Captain Elias Rain, Terran Independent Special Forces, Observer Class." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some laughed. A few scoffed outright. One delegate, a bronze-plated Varnock, leaned toward his comrade and whispered, "The Terrans still cling to these outdated honorifics. Observer Class, what even is that?" Caertal tapped his talon against the armrest. "Captain Rain, this tribunal has summoned you to provide explanation for the destruction of Velcora's forward operations base on the jungle moon of HFY 7. "I'm aware," Rain replied. "You are not authorized to engage." "I wasn't sent to engage," Rain said. "I was sent to observe. My report, if the Council recalls, indicated escalating Velcoran brutality against non-combatants in violation of Galactic Charter." Another ripple of murmurs. Caertal narrowed his eyes. "So you admit your people sent you to spy?" "My people sent me to see whether the Velcora were acting in good faith. They weren't. And in response, the Admiral hissed, 'Your kind unleashed.'" "What, exactly? Saboteurs? Mercenaries? Assassins?" The data logs show total systems failure within 23 minutes. Loss of all support craft, complete blackout of tactical channels, and the disappearance of 3 entire platoons. No traces. No captives. Not even corpses. Rain offered no change in expression. Caertal's tone turned mocking. "Do the humans believe this is diplomacy? Is this how Earth conducts interstellar relations?" At last, Rain stepped forward, deliberate and slow. His voice remained steady. "You called humans cowards. You accused us of hiding behind bureaucracy while your empire restored order with orbital bombardments. You glassed cities that couldn't fire back. You filmed it, laughed about it, broadcast it across neutral channels." Silence. Rain continued. "You expected resistance. You expected armies. You expected politics and speeches. But what you got was a lesson, one you still don't understand." The room buzzed with tension. Even those not aligned with Earth felt a shift. Caertal leaned forward. "A lesson. Yes," Rain said, "that some wars aren't fought in open fields. Some are won in whispers, in the dark, when the enemy wakes up afraid and doesn't know why." Across the galaxy, in the dense jungles of HFY 7, the aftermath of that lesson still festered. Ruins smoldered beneath the trees. Velcoran armor lay cracked and abandoned, some pieces half-submerged in rivers turned red with rust and ash. The jungle had begun reclaiming the site, vines curling through broken steel, birds chirping atop shattered command towers. But beneath the beauty, there was silence. Not the silence of peace, but the kind that echoed long after screaming had stopped. Task Force Erebus had come and gone like a rumor. No official records. No formal insignia. Only 7 humans, operatives stripped of national identity, trained in psychological warfare and asymmetric operations so advanced it bordered on myth. Their mission had not been to kill the Velcoran soldiers, but to dismantle their certainty, to make them afraid. Reaper led them, real name unknown, his presence more symbol than soldier. He did not speak unless necessary. His orders were clear, surgical. There were no wasted words in his command, no reckless bravado. Those who served under him did so without question, not out of loyalty, but because to question Reaper meant you didn't understand stakes. Ghost was the infiltrator, fragile in frame but deadly in maneuver, a master of mimicry and digital sabotage. Wraith, the sniper, never missed and never lingered. Cerberus handled the animals, canine units bred for stealth, capable of scenting explosives and predators alike. The rest were nameless now, intentionally so, their existence denied by every Terran government. When Erebus moved, it was like gravity shifted. Lights dimmed, radios died, patrols stumbled into traps that weren't their moments before. One soldier swore the jungle moved against them. Another claimed to have seen himself die before waking up screaming, alone in a bunker with no roof. The Velcora had believed they were unshakable. They believed humans feared them. They were wrong. The tribunal chamber shifted its tone. Even K-Tal's disdain had softened into something colder. Not fear, not yet, but recognition. You claim your kind did this to protect civilians, the Admiral said. Yet no civilians were saved. The colony remains abandoned. Rain nodded once. We didn't go to save them. We want to make sure it didn't happen again. K-Tal stood now, towering over Rain, his voice rising. Then admit it, Captain. Admit that your people unleashed monsters. Rain looked up, unflinching. We didn't unleash monsters. We reminded the galaxy that humans are not weak. We just choose our battles. And this was your message? No, Rain said. This was the warning. In a quiet surveillance room buried beneath Earth's orbital defense platform, a single screen flickered. An encrypted message played on loop. Footage from Hishari VII's last hours. Not of explosions. Not of violence. Just a still shot from the last surviving drone feed. 7 figures walking calmly through firelight. One of them turned. A helmet shaped like a skull stared into the lens. Then darkness. And with it, the truth. The boogeymen had returned. Boots touched soil without sound. The jungle of Vocaris Prime enveloped Task, Force Erebus in its steaming breath, vines curling like curious fingers toward their camouflage-clad forms. Overhead, a flicker of lightning arced behind dark clouds, casting momentary silhouettes of the Black Hawk-class drop ship as it vanished into the horizon. Silence reclaimed the canopy. Reaper, the leader, moved first, a phantom among shadows. His visor flickered with real-time terrain data as he raised a gloved hand, signaling spread. His voice, low and precise, filtered through encrypted comms. Phase 1 begins. Maintain blackout. The team dispersed like smoke and wind, every motion practice deliberate. Wraith scaled a thick-rooted tree with the ease of instinct, setting up his sniper nest beneath a curtain of moss. Ghost was already kneeling near a fallen drone, its Velcoran logo flickering faintly. A small blade split its casing as he began a quiet infiltration of its memory core. Cerberus, the largest of them all, crouched near his dogs, whispering commands in a language older than war. Each Doberman, sleek and black as obsidian, responded with uncanny stillness, eyes pulsing red before they darted into the underbrush. They moved not as men, but as intent given form. 3 kilometers north, the Velcoran outpost pulsed with sterile light, oblivious. A rectangular wound of steel in a living world. It stood like a blight against the green. Inside, soldiers yawned between shift rotations. Some laughed nervously, still trying to dismiss last night's patrol losses as technical failure. One captain joked about swamp gas and malfunctioning drones. Others said nothing at all. A tech officer sipped a hot ration drink, staring at a flickering feed. These jumble storms, always screwing with our sensors. The feed flashed static. Then it cleared. A brief frame, a shape. Human-shaped, near the northern fence. Then gone. The officer frowned, setting down his cup. Base command, I've got a... The screen cut to black. At the perimeter, 2 guards walked their route. Rifles slung low, their helmets broadcasting lazy sensor sweeps. They passed the northern barricade once. Nothing. Passed again. Still nothing. On the third pass, one guard glanced to his left. The other was gone. Not a sound. No scream. No drag marks. Just an empty patch of dirt where his partner had stood. Before he could react, a whisper brushed his ear. Boo. And then silence. Reaper confirmed the extraction with a curt nod. Wraith, you're green. Target acquired. Wraith's breath slowed as he centered the scope over the central watchtower. Inside, a Velcoran commander examined a datapad, unaware of the red now dancing at his temple. A heartbeat. Then another. Then, the shot. The tower's lights burst with the impact. The body didn't fall. It crumpled in place, as if the world had suddenly stopped holding it up. Chaos rippled outward. Alarm screamed, and every soldier within earshot snapped to attention. Sirens echoed into the jungle. Drones launched from recessed bays like insects stirred from a hive. But the jungle gave them nothing in return. In the trees, Wraith shifted to a second position, already gone before return fire peppered his former nest. He smiled. Back in the command chamber, Admiral Toll burst into the room, fuming. Report. Sniper shot. Tower 2 neutralized. Source unknown. Drones are wait. Systems just dropped again, sir. Define drop. No visual feeds. Internal comms scrambled. Thermal is offline. We're. The screen behind him flickered. For half a second, it displayed a static image. A skull etched into a black helmet, surrounded by mist. Then it went dark. Toll clenched his fist. They're mocking us. In the jungle, Ghost crouched beside a communications relay embedded in a rock outcropping. His tools danced through fibers and wires like a concert pianist composing in silence. One final twist of a screwdriver, and the array glowed once before falling dark. The Velcoran base was now sealed from outside contact, deaf, dumb, and blind beyond its own walls. Cerberus knelt nearby, petting the largest of his Dobermans, a beast named Nero. His voice was quiet. You smell them, don't you? The dog's head tilted. Cerberus smiled grimly. Go. The hounds melted into the shadows like liquid. Reaper, Ghost whispered, comms severed. They're locked inside their own fear. Proceed to Phase 2. Within the base, soldiers moved in tight squads, sweeping corridors and perimeter trails, weapons shaking slightly in their hands. The jungle, once dismissed as primitive and irrelevant, now loomed like a conscious predator. Whispers of ghosts and monsters crawled through the ranks. One squad fired blindly into the trees at imagined movement. Another found a pile of gear left neatly folded, the soldier who wore it gone without a trace. A corporal muttered a prayer. His sergeant barked, "We are Velcoran. We do not fear mammals hiding in bushes." An explosion silenced him. Not large, just enough to rip the watchtower in half. Another tower blinked out a moment later. Then the fuel depot, then a barracks wing. Each detonation precise, efficient. Not for show, for message. Wraith whispered, We're not killing them all. Not yet, Reaper replied. They still need to know what's coming. Inside a darkened tunnel beneath the base, Ghost and Reaper crept through a maintenance shaft now filled with the sharp scent of burning plasma wiring. Ghost adjusted his visor. Security grid looping. We got 10 minutes before they realize it's fake. That's more than enough. They reached the secondary command node. A Velcoran tech officer sat slumped at his station, unconscious. No blood, just a dart buried in his neck. Reaper accessed the terminal and began uploading a payload. Once this finishes, he said, they'll start seeing what we want them to see. Ghosts in every hallway. Shadows behind every bulkhead. He paused, and they'll start turning on each other. As they exfiltrated, a body dropped behind them from a vent shaft. Cerberus emerged, covered in grime and smoke. Dogs are back. They took out the ammunition stockpile. No losses. Good, Reaper said. They'll think it's sabotage. The jungle echoed with sirens. Velcoran commanders barked orders. Every squad reported conflicting information. Movement without targets, shots without sources, screams without bodies. Reaper's voice came through all channels. We end this tomorrow. Let the fear settle in. He turned toward the glowing sky where another thunderstorm brewed. A distant flash of lightning silhouetted the Velcoran base, now quiet, dimmer, and ever more vulnerable. Behind him, his team regrouped in the brush, eyes gleaming from behind expressionless helmets. No need for words. The American Boogeymen had arrived, and night was only just beginning. Smoke curled lazily from the ruins of the northern fuel depot as dawn threatened the jungle horizon. The Velcoran base, once pristine and humming with order, now resembled a fractured machine, cracked in key places, groaning under the weight of uncertainty. Metal creaked. Lights flickered. Soldiers muttered prayers in corners they never feared before. Admiral Toll hadn't slept. He stood in the center of the command dome, armor unpolished, eyes bloodshot. He had lost 4 officers overnight and over 50 soldiers. None to open combat, none to conventional warfare. They simply disappeared, one by one, into the whispering jungle. And those who returned came back wrong. Shaking, silent, unwilling to hold a rifle. They're not soldiers, he muttered under his breath. There's something else. The central console chirped. A live feed stabilized. Internal security footage from subsector D3, storage level. He leaned in. The hallway lights flickered, glitching at half power. A lone Velcoran private walked cautiously, weapon drawn, eyes darting. Behind him, the shadows thickened unnaturally. Movement. Toll paused the feed. He rewound. Frame by frame, he advanced. The shadow behind the private wasn't a shadow at all. It was a man, armored in black, moving impossibly still, blending into the corridor as if he belonged there. Reaper, the one who wore the skull on his visor. Toll didn't flinch. He watched as the black-clad soldier closed the distance, made no sound, and placed one hand on the private's shoulder. The Velcoran turned. The feed cut to static. They're watching us, he said, straightening up. They're inside already. A junior officer stepped forward. Sir, I recommend requesting planetary backup. There's no time, Toll snapped. They'll intercept any off-world signal before it even clears the stratosphere. Then what do? We prepare, Toll said, voice ironclad. If they want us in the dark, we burn the shadows. Elsewhere, in the jungle fog, Task Force Erebus gathered for the final strike. Phase 3 begins now, Reaper said, crouching over a hollow map projected from his wrist pad. Main objectives are command severance, communications annihilation, and psychological rupture. Minimal casualties. We want the broken, not buried. Ghost adjusted the strap on his pack. We could take the whole base out in a single coordinated run. I don't want the base, Reaper said. I want their myth shattered. He paused, looking around the circle. Wraith, silent and focused, assembling his final ammunition belt. Cerberus whispering to his dogs, as if delivering final rites. Ghost rechecking his infiltration injectors. They called us cowards, Reaper said. They thought we were soft, unwilling, too busy grieving and writing poetry to wage war like they do. So we showed them something else. Ghost smiled, taught them what keeps our enemies up at night. Reaper nodded. Tonight, we finished the lesson. In the perimeter towers, Velcoran soldiers clutched rifles with white knuckles. They had started hearing things, whispers through the radios, coded numbers in Earth languages they didn't understand. Every shadow looked wrong now. Every tree trunk held imagined eyes. Rumors swirled of invisible demons, of entire patrols vanishing mid-sentence, of elite humans that didn't kill like soldiers but hunted like ghosts. A corporal leaned toward his sergeant. Do you think they're even human? I think they don't need to be, the sergeant answered, not looking up. That evening, the first move came without sound. The base's power grid died in 3 consecutive pulses: lights, surveillance, and environmental controls. The temperature inside the base began to climb, the air thickening into a swampy haze. Manual overrides were disabled. Doors locked or jammed randomly. Soldiers trapped in rooms screamed over comms, then went silent. The second move came with confusion. Dozens of false signals activated. Internal sensors reported movement in impossible locations. Holograms of the Erebus team flickered into view just long enough to start a panic, then vanished. Entire squads responded to phantom threats and returned to their posts, missing members. Admiral Toll stood at the center of chaos, shouting orders to ghosted comm lines. Re-establish contact with Tower 5. Sir, Tower 5 doesn't exist on the grid anymore. What do you mean it doesn't? A thud echoed from behind the control room door. Everyone froze. A soldier approached, opened the door. Only a helmet lay outside. One of their own, faceplate cracked in. Inside, a small black card was embedded. A Velcoran officer picked it up. On the card, a single word: Boogeyman. He dropped it like it burned him. Toll stepped forward, shaking with fury. We are Velcoran. We don't fear shadows. The lights behind him shattered. Then came the voice. Low, calm, broadcast through every functioning speaker. Reaper, you glassed a planet that couldn't fight back. You murdered children, burned trees, called it progress. You told your people we were afraid, that we'd never fight, that we'd run. The words hung in the static, deadly in their clarity. You were wrong. At the North Quadrant, Ghost slithered through ventilation shafts, bypassing tripwires and biological sensors. His hand reached down into the central data port and deployed a viral spike. The base's central archive, tactical documents, chain of command, encryption protocols, was scrubbed clean within minutes. Their past was erased. Their future already compromised. Southside, Cerberus stood at the edge of a landing bay. Explosives lined the interior of every dropship. As the last dog slipped through a side tunnel, he whispered, "Rest now." With a press of his pad, the entire bay lit in blue flame, ships crumbling like toy models under precise blasts. Escape was no longer an option. Wraith, positioned on the eastern ridge, picked off power units from afar, quiet bursts of plasma that severed the base's backup systems one by one. Each shot was a surgical incision. He didn't speak. His breath remained even. His scope was still hot when he got up and moved again. At the final hour of dusk, Reaper walked through the main gate. Alone, helmet off, eyes cold, mouth unreadable. A dozen Velcoran rifles trained on him instantly. He raised his hands. No weapons, he said. Just a message. Admiral Toll stepped forward, his sidearm shaking ever so slightly. You came to die? No, Reaper said. I came to look you in the eye. So you'll remember the face of your failure. Toll snarled, raised the weapon. But Reaper had already vanished. A blur. A streak. Then a crash. Smoke filled the command center. When it cleared, half the weapons were gone. Every screen now displayed Earth's military insignia overlaid on the skull visor. The base's mainframe began a full meltdown countdown. The voice returned one final time. This is not war. This is retribution. Toll stood, shaking amidst the wreckage. Alone now, outside the base walls, in the jungle's embrace, Reaper and his team melted once more into the mist. No cheers, no banners, just silence. Mission complete. But the story wasn't over yet. Ash and silence blanketed what remained of the Valkoran base. Twisted steel lay in coils, like broken limbs of a dead beast. The once unshakable command dome now leaned at an unnatural angle, gutted from within. Blackened scorch marks painted the walls with chaotic brushstrokes. No explosions too large, no fires out of control. Just precise destruction. Everything that mattered had been dismantled, one essential piece at a time. Reaper stood at the jungle's edge, helmet tucked beneath his arm, watching the sky bruise from blue into indigo. Behind him, Ghost moved silently, wiping soot from a burnt data pad, as if removing fingerprints from memory. Wraith emerged next, unslinging his rifle and crouching beside a broken Valkoran transmitter, inspecting it not out of curiosity, but finality. Cerberus crouched near the dogs, offering water to Nero, who licked it gratefully, tail still and low. The mission was over, but something heavier than success lingered in the air. Status, Reaper said, voice low. Ghost answered first. Mainframe wiped. Comm grid collapsed. Global positioning desynced. They're ghosts now. Not even their own empire will know what happened. Perimeter? Reaper asked. Wraith replied, empty. No scouts. No air support. No trace signatures headed this way. Either they think it's too late, or they don't want to know. Extraction ETA? Cerberus glanced at his wrist pad. 56 minutes. Local interference might push it to 70. Could go hot again before then. Reaper nodded once, absorbing the risks. Then we wait. Quietly. But quiet never lasted long. A cough broke the silence. Weak. Human. All four men turned, rifles raised, ready. A figure stumbled from the wreckage. A Valkoran soldier, no more than a boy. Helmet gone. Face bruised and dirty. Armor hanging in tatters. His eyes widened at the sight of them. These mythic demons, real and terrible. He dropped to his knees, shaking. Please, he whispered, voice ragged. I surrender. Reaper approached. The others held back. The boy didn't flinch, didn't move. He seemed barely able to breathe. Reaper knelt before him. Not threatening, not comforting. Simply watching. Why did you stay behind? He asked. I couldn't find my squad, the boy stammered. Everyone was gone. The comms, there were screams and static. Then nothing. I hid in the storage lockers. I didn't want to die. Reaper stared at him for a moment longer, then stood. You're not dead. Are you going to kill me? No. The answer hung between them, cold and absolute. But wanting to tell them what you saw, Reaper continued. Tell them who we are. Tell them what happens when you mistake silence for surrender. I don't even know your name. You don't need it, Reaper said, turning away. Just remember the eyes. Behind him, the soldier collapsed, sobbing, alive but shattered. Wraith stepped closer, voice quiet. You think he'll make it back? No, Cerberus said simply. But his fear will. Ghost nodded. The Empire doesn't fear death. They fear myth. And now they've got one. Minutes passed. The team moved into the trees, vanishing from any clear path, leaving no trace. Birds returned to the canopy above. The jungle, resilient as ever, began reclaiming what Steel had tried to claim. It would take weeks before off-world forces landed. By then, there would be no trail, no proof. Only stories. High above, the dropship finally returned, a silent shadow cutting through cloud cover. It lowered into the clearing with surgical grace, barely disturbing the canopy. The bay doors opened, and the team boarded without a word. Inside, they removed helmets. Faces revealed, tired, grim, unsmiling. They looked nothing like legends. But legends, Reaper knew, were never built from glory. They were built from fear, precision, and the willingness to do what others couldn't stomach. As the dropship ascended, Cerberus leaned back, closing his eyes. So what now? Debrief? Fade into another bunker somewhere. Reaper stared out the window, watching the jungle vanish beneath a curtain of clouds. We wait, and when the next threat shows up, we remind them to. Ghost gave a half-smile. Boogeymen never sleep. Only in the stories, Wraith muttered, eyes on the floor. For a moment, the interior dimmed. The ship climbed higher, breaking through atmosphere. Stars emerged beyond the glass. Distant, cold, unreachable. Each of them fell into their own silence. Below them, the Velcoran base smoldered, and in its ruins, the weight of humiliation settled into every broken corridor. When the recovery fleet arrived, they would find no clear enemy, no banner planted, no manifesto scrawled in blood. Only the word Boogeyman, etched into command consoles and projected across every system, file, still accessible. For Velcora, it would be the beginning of whispers. First in dark rooms, then on encrypted forums, then in barracks. Whispers of men who didn't march, who didn't shout, who arrived unseen, struck without warning, and left without trace. Men who didn't kill for pride, but for justice so cold and calculated it resembled vengeance. They would be called demons, shadows, cowards, and monsters, but always with reverence, always with fear, and always with the growing realization that the humans they thought soft, the ones they mocked as poets and pacifists, had shadows darker than Velcora could comprehend. Admiral Toll, stripped of command and court-martialed before a tribunal desperate to assign blame, would speak of them during his final deposition. He would slam his fists on a table, eyes wild, and scream. They weren't an army. They were a message. Across stars, in hushed tones, others would begin to ask, what if the stories are real? What if the Earthborn haven't gone soft? What if they're just waiting? And in the cold silence of space, beyond politics and empires, a handful of men in black would prepare for the next call. No flags, no medals, no recognition, only purpose, because fear, properly wielded, did not require acknowledgement, only belief. And the galaxy now believed. The Boogeymen were real.